Millionaire CEO accidentally sees his innocent maid's secret and becomes attracted. No one was supposed to see what Daniel Hartman saw that night. He'd only opened the security feed out of habit, a restless man seeking distraction from another sleepless evening. The city glittered below his penthouse like a circuit board, and the rain tapped against the glass in nervous rhythms. The cameras showed what they always did: stillness, empty halls, the faint reflection of his own loneliness, until movement flickered on one screen. There, in the private lounge where no one went after hours, his maid, Lily Moreno, was sitting on the floor beside the tall window, her back against the marble, her phone glowing in her hands. He almost closed the feed. But something in her expression stopped him. She wasn't scrolling or texting. She was speaking. Softly. To herself. He leaned forward, the chair creaking under his weight. Her voice, small, trembling, impossibly sincere, filled his office speakers. "He hides behind glass walls," she whispered. "A man so powerful the world kneels before him. And yet no one has ever seen his face when he's alone." Daniel froze. Those words. He'd read them before. Weeks ago. A viral online story, The Glass King. Everyone had speculated about its author, about the real man behind it. But no one had guessed the truth. Now, hearing her voice, watching the pain and poetry in her eyes, the realization cut through him like lightning. She wrote it. The anonymous author who had captured his soul, his secrets, his solitude, was the quiet maid who dusted his tables and whispered good morning without meeting his gaze. Lily kept reading, unaware. He thinks love is a threat. That's why he builds his walls higher each year. But if someone looked close enough, they'd see, he's just tired of being seen for the wrong reasons. The silence that followed was unbearable. Daniel's chest ached as if those words had reached a place no one had ever touched. He should have looked away. Turned the monitor off. Pretended he hadn't seen it. But he couldn't. Something in her, in that trembling voice, that hidden fire, drew him in. He didn't know her. But she knew him. And from that moment, his carefully built world of control began to crack. Not from scandal, not from betrayal, but from the sound of one girl's voice in the dark. The next morning, the world looked the same. Sharp suits, polished marble, and coffee that tasted like nothing. But Daniel wasn't the same. He couldn't unhear her voice. Those words had crawled under his skin and stayed there, pulsing like a heartbeat he hadn't felt in years. Lily entered his office at precisely 8:30, as she always did. Her hair was neatly tied back, her uniform crisp. She greeted him softly, "Good morning, Mr. Hartman," and began dusting the shelf beside his desk. He didn't answer. He was staring. Not at her face exactly, but at the calm way she moved, the care in her touch. And all he could think of was that voice. That story. That secret. He turned away quickly, pretending to read an email. His pulse was loud in his ears. All day he caught himself watching her, passing in the hallway, arranging fresh flowers, wiping the glass doors of his office. Her reflection moved beside his in every surface. And every time his mind whispered, "She's the one who wrote it." He wanted to ask her. To see if she would flinch, lie, confess. But he didn't. He couldn't risk breaking whatever invisible thread connected them now. Instead, he tested her in small ways. He left the morning paper open on the article about the Glass King, the one analyzing every line like scripture. Her eyes flicked toward it once, briefly. Then she looked away. Later, he left his laptop open on a blank document titled The Glass King. When he returned, it was still blank, but his pen had been moved half an inch to the right, as if she'd almost written something, then stopped. That night, he stood by the window, city lights bleeding into the glass. He thought about what she'd written. He hides behind glass walls. Was that how she saw him? A man trapped in transparency, admired but untouched? The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent a lifetime being looked at by everyone, yet truly seen by no one. And now, the only person who had ever looked past the glass was his maid. He told himself to let it go. She was just a girl. A stranger who happened to write well. It didn't matter. But when he heard her humming faintly in the corridor, he found himself walking toward the sound before realizing what he was doing. She was polishing a mirror, her reflection a blur of movement. He stopped in the doorway, watching. "Do you always clean in silence?" he asked. She startled, turning quickly. Not always." Sometimes I think better when it's quiet. Think, he repeated. About what? Her fingers tightened around the cloth. Stories, mostly. There it was. The word that changed everything. Stories, he echoed, his tone careful. You write. Her eyes darted to the floor. Not seriously. Just to pass time. A pause stretched between them, long enough for both to feel the weight of what was unsaid. He nodded once, hiding his racing thoughts. Keep writing, he said quietly, then turned away before she could answer. As the elevator doors closed behind him, she stood frozen, heart pounding. Because for a brief second, in his voice, she'd heard something no one had ever given her before, not authority. Not command. But permission. 3 nights later, the mansion was quiet again. The kind of silence that only the rich can afford, vast, cold, echoing. Daniel Hartman sat in his study, surrounded by the hum of success. His company's logo glowed faintly on the skyline through the window. The world saw him as untouchable, efficient, brilliant. He felt nothing but restless. His phone buzzed. A message from the publisher. The Glass King just hit 1 million downloads. Anonymous author still unknown. The mystery's selling it. Daniel stared at the words for a long moment. Then his gaze drifted across the desk, to a notebook Lily had accidentally left behind that afternoon while cleaning. It was small, bound in fading blue leather, the edges frayed, a pressed daisy between the pages. He shouldn't open it. He knew that. But curiosity is a dangerous thing for a lonely man. He flipped it open. At first, it was harmless: grocery lists, reminders to call her brother, fragments of to-do lists written in neat cursive. And then, the words changed. I keep dreaming of glass. Of people who see through me but never see me. He walks through rooms like a shadow that forgot it used to be human. Sometimes I wonder if he knows that his silence is louder than my heartbeat. Daniel's throat tightened. Every sentence was a mirror, and he was staring at himself. He turned another page. There it was. The same line that had haunted him since the first time he'd read The Glass King. He hides behind glass walls. It was her. Lily. His maid. The anonymous author who had cracked open his soul and turned it into poetry. For a long time, he just sat there motionless. Something inside him shifted. Awe, confusion, guilt, and something deeper he didn't want to name yet. He closed the notebook gently, almost reverently, as though it were made of fragile glass too. Downstairs, he could hear faint movement, the sound of a mop being wrung out, the shuffle of her soft shoes against marble. He walked toward it, each step slower than the last. Lily looked up as he entered the kitchen, startled. She hadn't expected him home this late. Her eyes darted to the clock, then to him. I'm sorry, Mr. Hartman. I didn't realize you were still awake. I'll finish quickly. He didn't respond right away. His voice, when it came, was low, measured, almost careful. You left your notebook. Her body went still. He held it out, the blue leather glowing faintly in the overhead light. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she reached for it slowly, her fingers brushing his as she took it. Her hand trembled. I thank you, she whispered, trying to steady her breath. He could see the panic flicker across her face, the dread that maybe he had read it. You write beautifully, he said quietly. The notebook slipped from her hand. It hit the floor, pages fanning open like wings. Her voice broke. You read it. He didn't deny it. I did. Silence stretched between them, sharp, suffocating, alive. I'm sorry, she said quickly, her words tumbling out. I shouldn't have written those things. It's just how I see the world. I never meant. Don't apologize for seeing, he interrupted softly. Not everyone does. Her breath caught. He bent down, picked up the notebook, and placed it gently on the counter. Why did you write it? She swallowed hard. Because no one listens when I talk. Something in him broke open at that, the simplicity, the ache in it. Daniel looked at her, really looked. The woman who scrubbed his floors, washed his dishes, walked his halls unseen. The woman who had captured his entire world in words he couldn't escape. And for the first time in years, Daniel Hartman didn't feel powerful. He felt human. He stepped back slowly, voice barely above a whisper. Don't stop writing, Lily. Ever. Then he turned and left the room before the weight of what he was feeling could drown him completely. She stood there long after he'd gone, notebook pressed to her chest, tears silently streaking her face. Because in his eyes, just for a moment, she hadn't been invisible. Rain had a way of softening the world, blurring edges until everything felt less dangerous. That week, it never seemed to stop raining. Daniel's penthouse was quieter than usual, no phone calls, no meetings he couldn't reschedule. He told his assistant he needed solitude to focus on projections. But the only thing he was projecting was her voice, her words, replaying through his mind like an unfinished melody. He didn't summon her. She came anyway, as she always did, unnoticed, efficient, quiet. He watched her work from his office doorway, unseen, until she turned suddenly and their eyes met. Neither spoke. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that neither had language for yet. Later that night, when the staff had gone and the city outside turned into rivers of light, he found himself in the lounge again. The same place he'd first seen her reading to the dark. He expected emptiness. But she was there. Sitting cross-legged on the same spot by the window, phone in hand, whispering words again. Only this time, when she realized he was there, she didn't stop. "I was writing something new," she said softly. "I can leave if you'd like." "No," Daniel interrupted, voice low. "Keep going." Her hands trembled slightly, but she nodded. She looked down at her phone and began reading. "They say the rich never sleep. But maybe they just can't close their eyes without seeing what they've lost." Her words drifted between them like smoke. Daniel's chest tightened. "Who is it about this time?" She hesitated, eyes flicking toward him. "Someone who looks like he has everything, but doesn't realize he's starving." He stepped closer. Starving for what? She met his gaze, and for the first time, didn't look away. Something real. A silence heavier than glass filled the room. Rain whispered against the window. Daniel sank into the chair across from her, elbows resting on his knees. "Read more," he said quietly. She did. And he listened. Night after night, it became their secret rhythm, her reading aloud what she wrote, him listening in the dark, saying little, but hearing everything. He started leaving the lights low, the door unlocked. Sometimes, he'd pour 2 cups of tea but pretend it was for himself. She always noticed, always smiled. It was never planned. It was never spoken of in daylight. But it was theirs. She began to tell him stories about people who built walls to feel safe, and he began to see himself in every word. He started to tell her small things, how his father had died before his first deal, how silence had always been his armor. He didn't realize he was confessing until she looked at him and said, "You sound like one of my stories." He laughed quietly. "Or maybe you sound like one of mine." When she smiled, something inside him shifted, something small, dangerous, and alive. From that night on, Daniel stopped reading the morning news. He waited instead for the evenings, when the rain would start again, and she'd come into the lounge with her voice full of light. He didn't know it yet, but that room had already become their world. And in that world, the line between boss and maid was dissolving, one story, one look, one heartbeat at a time. The rain stopped, and with it, their quiet world began to change. It happened gradually, small glances that lingered too long, words that carried too much meaning for the sterile air of a penthouse. The staff noticed first. They always do. A maid whispered to another near the laundry room, "Mr. Hartman's different lately." "How?" He smiles. Daniel didn't notice the whispers at first. He was too caught in the rhythm of their secret nights. Lily would read, he would listen. Sometimes he'd offer a line, a thought, a single word that changed the shape of her story. One night, she looked at him and said, "You make my words sound better just by listening." He almost told her that she made his silence feel softer, but he stopped himself. But nothing stays secret in a house full of walls that echo. It began with a misplaced phone. His assistant had picked it up from the lounge table, screen glowing with a half-written message. "He asked me to read again tonight." The assistant had read it twice, memorized the number, then quietly deleted the draft before placing the phone back. By morning, the entire staff moved differently around Lily, eyes sharper, tones colder. She felt it before she heard it. The way footsteps paused when she entered a room. The way people smiled too politely. And then she heard one whisper, barely audible, near the pantry. Sleeping her way up. The words cut like glass. That evening, when Daniel returned home, she was quieter than usual, her eyes swollen, her movements mechanical. He watched her wipe the same counter for 5 minutes straight without realizing it. "Lily," he said softly. She flinched, almost dropping the cloth. "Yes, sir." "Don't sir me." "What's wrong?" "Nothing." He stepped closer. Someone said something. Her breath hitched. "It doesn't matter." "It matters if it hurts you." That silence again, so fragile he was afraid to move. Finally, she whispered, "People think I'm with you." He blinked, realizing too late what his late nights and long looks might have looked like from the outside. Her voice trembled. "I don't want anyone to think that." The words struck him harder than she intended. He tried to sound calm, but his voice came out rougher than he meant. And what if it were true? She froze. Her eyes lifted to his, wide and uncertain. "Then I'd lose everything." The sound of her answer left a taste like ash in his mouth. He turned away before she could see what that did to him. "You should take the evening off," he said quietly. She nodded, eyes glistening. "Of course." When she left, he stood there alone in the hollow brightness of his own home. He had built a life where rumors couldn't touch him. But one sentence about her, one careless whisper, felt like a wound he couldn't defend. That night, he sat in the lounge, the chair across from him empty, the silence unbearable. And for the first time since he'd met her, he realized something terrifying. He wasn't just fascinated by her anymore. He was afraid of losing her. Days passed like ghosts. The lounge stayed dark. The nights stayed long. And Daniel Hartman found himself waiting for a voice that no longer came. Lily avoided him flawlessly, professional smiles, quick exits, invisible presence. She stopped cleaning his office when he was inside. She left early. She moved through the penthouse like a shadow trying not to cast one. He told himself he understood. That this was for the best. He told himself he could let her go. But at night, when he walked past the empty lounge, something in him twisted. That room had once been a pulse. Now it was a hollow heart. He'd catch her reflection in a window sometimes, head bowed, carrying laundry, her eyes distant. And every time, he remembered that line she'd written. He hides behind glass walls. Now he felt trapped behind them, too. His temper changed. His assistants noticed first. He barked at people, canceled meetings, ignored deals worth millions. The company could run itself. He couldn't. One evening, he found himself in his car outside her small apartment building. He didn't remember deciding to drive there. He sat in the rain, engine off, watching light spill from a narrow window on the 3rd floor. He could see her silhouette, hair loose for once, head bent over her phone, writing. His chest ached with something unfamiliar. Not desire. Not guilt. Something softer. Sadder. He whispered to himself, "She's writing about me again." And maybe she was. But not the version of him he wanted to be. The next morning, she came to work late, eyes tired, hair damp from the rain. He was in the kitchen, coffee untouched, pretending to read the paper. "You're late," he said quietly, not looking up. She froze. "I know. I'm sorry." He folded the paper. "Don't apologize. Just tell me why." She hesitated. "I was writing." He looked up then. Their eyes met, briefly, sharply. "Good," he said. "You should." She blinked. "You're not angry?" "I'd rather you write something true than show up on time." Her lips parted slightly, unsure if he was serious. He stood, closing the distance between them. "Lily," he said softly, "I didn't mean for things to change. I didn't mean to ruin what we had." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You didn't ruin it. You just noticed it." He frowned. "What does that mean?" She looked at him with quiet pain. "Stories only stay beautiful when no one admits they're real." Her words left him speechless. Then she turned and walked away, her shoes clicking softly against marble, each step a quiet farewell. He stood there long after she'd gone, the taste of her truth lingering like rain in the air. That night, Daniel finally opened his laptop. He typed one line. Then another. Words he hadn't written in years. She left the glass palace, but the walls followed her. It was the first time he'd written anything not for business, not for profit. It was for her. And as he sat there, alone, he realized what she'd given him wasn't love. Not yet. It was something rarer, permission to feel again. It began with a headline. Anonymous author of viral story The Glass King, believed to work for Billionaire CEO Daniel Hartman. The words glared from every screen in his office. Phones buzzing, emails flooding, reporters circling like hawks. Daniel's first thought wasn't the scandal. It was her. Lily. She was still at the penthouse that morning, folding linens in the corridor when the first call came. His assistant's voice trembled through the intercom. "Sir, it's out. Someone leaked the author's identity. They're saying—" "I know," Daniel cut in. His tone was cold, but his hand shook as he turned off the speaker. He walked out into the hallway. Lily froze when she saw him, her face pale, hands still gripping the folded sheet like a shield. "Sir," she whispered. "Pack your things," he said. Her eyes widened, hurt flickering beneath confusion. "You're firing me?" "Just do it," he said, sharper than he intended. He glanced toward the glass elevator, security staff already murmuring, cameras flashing outside the gate below. She didn't argue. She never did. She just nodded, voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I never." He stopped her. "Not here." Minutes later in his office, the door locked, blinds drawn. The air thickened with everything they hadn't said in weeks. Her voice trembled. "You read my notebook, and now everyone knows. Did you?" He cut her off, furious at himself. "I would never." "Then how?" "I don't know," he said, pacing. "Maybe the assistant. Maybe the system. But you need to leave before they find you." Her tears came fast then, silent, restrained, the kind that hurt more for how hard she tried to hide them. "You think leaving will fix it? They'll know soon enough. They'll say I used you. That I'm—" she choked on the word. "Yours." He turned to her, something wild in his eyes. "Let them say it. I don't care what they think." "But I do," she whispered. "Because they'll be right." That silence hit harder than the headline. He moved closer. "Lily." She shook her head, stepping back. "You don't understand. You can survive this. I can't. I'm no one. I clean the floors you walk on. You'll move on by morning. I'll lose everything." He exhaled slowly, steadying his voice. "Then I'll fix it." "How?" she demanded, the first real spark of anger in her voice. "You can't undo a truth that people want to believe." He stared at her, this fragile, furious, trembling girl who had written his loneliness into words the world devoured, and realized she wasn't wrong. "Still," he said quietly, "I'll find a way." She looked at him for a long moment, eyes searching, softening. Then she whispered, "You can't protect me without destroying yourself." He almost smiled, hollowly. "Then maybe that's fair." The room fell silent again, only the faint hum of the city below, the echo of rain beginning once more. Lily looked down at the floor. "I'll leave tonight." He wanted to stop her. He wanted to say stay. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, he reached for the one thing he could still control, her story. "If they publish anything with your name, I'll bury it," he said quietly. "No one touches your words without your consent." Her eyes lifted then, wet, terrified, grateful. "Why?" He answered without hesitation. "Because they were never just words." And for the first time, she saw him without the glass, without the armor. Just a man trying to keep one fragile thing safe in a world built to shatter it. The next morning, her room was empty. The bed was made, the drawers cleared, the faint scent of lavender still clinging to the air. Lily Moreno had vanished as quietly as she'd lived. Daniel stood in the doorway, staring at the folded maid uniform left on the chair, the last trace of her. A note lay on top of it. "Thank you for listening. Please forget me before they ruin you too." He didn't move for a long time. The penthouse around him felt too bright, too hollow, like a museum for ghosts. By afternoon, the media frenzy had exploded. Paparazzi outside. Shareholders demanding statements. Headlines multiplying. Who is the woman who inspired the Glass King? Billionaire's maid-turned-secret author. Love scandal or betrayal. His PR team swarmed his office, voices overlapping, damage control, brand risk, public apology drafts. He said nothing. Just sat there, eyes fixed on the skyline that once looked beautiful and now just looked like bars. "She's gone," he said finally. One of his advisors cleared his throat. "Good. Distance is safer. We'll spin it as charity. She was a staff writer you mentored. Romantic involvement denied, of course." Daniel's head snapped up. "Don't you dare." The room froze. He stood, voice low but sharp enough to cut through the noise. "She's not a story for you to rewrite. She's not a headline." No one spoke after that. He dismissed them all with a glance, and by evening, the penthouse was silent again. The kind of silence that doesn't heal, it hollows. That night, Daniel sat at the same window where she'd once read her stories aloud. He opened his laptop. The cursor blinked on an empty page. He typed. The maid left the palace. The king stayed behind, surrounded by everything except the one thing that mattered. He stopped, staring at the words. Then he deleted them. He opened the security archives, scrolling, rewinding, reliving every quiet moment they'd shared. Her laughter. Her stories. The rain. The memory of her voice was clearer than the footage. He hides behind glass walls. He finally understood what she'd meant. It wasn't him she'd been describing all along. It was them both. She'd written about a world that could never love someone like her, and he'd proven her right. 2 days later, an internal report hit his desk. Unrequested, unsigned. It included security logs, time-stamped footage access. And at the bottom, one name. His assistant. The same one who had found her phone weeks ago. Daniel stared at the screen, disbelief hardening into rage. He picked up the phone. "Get me Evan," he said flatly. Within minutes, the assistant was standing before him, nervous, shifting. "Sir, I can explain. You leaked it." Evan hesitated. The board needed leverage. They thought public sympathy would. Daniel slammed his hand on the desk. "You destroyed her life for leverage?" Silence. He could have fired him, sued him, but none of it would undo the damage. None of it would bring her back. "Get out," Daniel said quietly. Evan left without another word. That night, Daniel didn't go home. He drove for hours through the rain-soaked city, searching the streets without a destination, scanning faces at bus stops, shelters, cafes, anywhere a girl like her might have disappeared into. But the city gave him nothing back. Just reflections, of himself, of glass, of loss. And for the first time, Daniel Hartman realized that for all his power, he couldn't buy the one thing he wanted most. To find her before the world's noise silenced her forever. It had been 23 days since Lily vanished. Daniel counted them the way a prisoner marks walls, quietly, precisely, without admitting what it meant. Every morning he read the papers. Every morning, her story grew smaller, replaced by fresher gossip until she was gone from the public eye completely. But not from his. He began to follow her words instead of headlines. He scoured online forums, writing groups, small blogs, anywhere her style might surface. She had a way with sentences, a rhythm that was hers alone, sad, simple, honest. When he found a post titled "The Window on the 41st Floor," he knew. The story was short. A man of glass. A woman who cleaned it until she could see her own reflection in his walls. And then she left him, so he'd finally learn what loneliness looked like from the outside. At the bottom of the post, LM. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The IP traced to a library on the south side, old brick, broken neon sign, a coffee shop next door. He went that same evening, wearing a cap and plain coat that didn't belong to him. The library was nearly empty. The smell of paper and dust hung in the air like memory. He walked slowly between the aisles until he saw her. Lily sat at a table near the window, laptop open, hair loose around her shoulders. She looked smaller somehow, or maybe just quieter. A half-empty coffee cup sat beside her notebook. He stopped several steps away. For a moment, he simply watched, afraid that speaking would break the fragile scene, like tapping on glass. Then she looked up. Her eyes widened, disbelief flashing across her face before turning into something unreadable. "Daniel," she whispered. He exhaled her name like it was an apology. You left without saying goodbye. I had to. Why here? Because no one looks for stories in real life, she said softly. Only in books. He took a slow step closer. I read your new one. She blinked. Then you know why I can't go back. He shook his head. You were wrong about one thing. Her voice trembled. What? You said he'd never see her again. Her throat tightened. That's not how stories work. Then maybe it's time to change how they end. She closed her laptop, fingers trembling. You don't belong here. Someone could see you. Let them. Daniel. I don't care anymore. The library was silent except for the hum of the air vents and the rain starting again outside. He reached into his coat pocket and set something on the table, her old blue notebook. She stared at it. You kept it. I couldn't throw away the only thing that ever told the truth about me. Her eyes filled, and before she could stop herself, she whispered, I didn't mean to expose you. I just wanted to understand you. He leaned closer, his voice barely more than breath. And I've been trying to understand why being seen by you feels like breathing for the first time. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then someone coughed near the door, and the spell broke. She looked away, blinking back tears. He straightened, forcing control back into his tone. Come back with me. Just for tonight. No press, no cameras. Just talk. She hesitated. And tomorrow? I'll make tomorrow wait. Lily's hand hovered over her notebook. For a moment, she seemed to weigh the world, the pain behind her, the danger ahead, the quiet pull between them. Then, wordlessly, she stood. They walked out together into the rain. No umbrella, no plan. Just two people who had written each other into existence and were finally reading the same page. The city was still asleep when Daniel's car stopped in front of the penthouse. Neither of them had spoken during the drive. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was loaded, trembling, alive with things too fragile to say out loud. When the elevator doors opened, Lily hesitated. It feels different, she whispered. Daniel's voice was low. Everything is different. The lights flickered softly as they entered. The housekeeper had left hours ago. The entire floor smelled faintly of rain and roses from the garden below. Lily walked to the piano. Her fingers brushed the keys, and a single note echoed through the room, haunting, hesitant, incomplete. She turned. You shouldn't have come for me. I couldn't not. I broke your trust, Daniel. I told the world who you are underneath the suits. I made you vulnerable. He took a step closer. You made me human. Her throat worked. That wasn't my right. Maybe not, he admitted. But you gave me something no one else ever could, the truth. Lily shook her head, tears threatening. The truth ruined you. No, he said softly. The truth set me free. She looked at him then, really looked, and saw the man, not the billionaire, not the name on glossy magazine covers, but the one who had stood barefoot on marble floors in the middle of the night, listening to a song that wasn't his. She whispered, They'll destroy me if they find out I'm here. He closed the distance between them, his hand trembling as it reached for hers. Then I'll burn the world down before I let them touch you. Her voice broke. Don't do that. Don't save me like that. Save me by letting me go. Daniel flinched, as if the words had weight. You want me to stop? I want you to live. He turned away, walking to the window. The city sprawled below, his kingdom, his cage. When I was a kid, he said quietly, my mother used to tell me that money was just a louder kind of silence. I didn't understand what she meant until I met you. You were the first sound that ever broke through it. Lily's tears finally fell. Then listen to me now. You have to let the noise die down. Let them forget me. He faced her, eyes burning. And what about me? You think I'll forget? No, she said softly. But you'll heal. He crossed back to her in 2 long strides, stopping just short of touching her. His voice was hoarse. Tell me not to love you, and I'll try. She swallowed hard, looking up at him through tears. You already love me, Daniel. That's not the problem. The problem is you're willing to lose yourself for me. He smiled sadly. Maybe that's what love is. Then love me by walking away, she whispered. For a long moment, neither moved. The air between them hummed with pain and tenderness. Finally, Daniel nodded once, slowly, as if each inch of movement tore him open. He stepped back. If I walk away, Lily, will you keep writing? She managed a fragile smile. It's the only thing that keeps me breathing. He exhaled, something breaking loose in his chest. Then that's enough. She looked at him like she wanted to memorize him, the way his eyes softened, the way his jaw clenched when he tried not to cry. Goodbye, Daniel. He shook his head faintly. No, not goodbye. Just the end of one song. She walked to the door, paused, and turned one last time. Then promise me something. Anything. When you hear my music again, don't hide. Let the world see you feel. He didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded. The door closed behind her with a sound that felt like finality. Daniel stood there for a long time, staring at the piano she'd just touched. Then he sat down and played the single note she had left hanging in the air. He built around it, slowly, painfully, until a melody formed. Her melody. Their melody. When the sun rose over the city, Daniel Blackwell's face was everywhere again, on screens, on papers, in headlines. But this time, the story was different. CEO funds nationwide music program for underprivileged artists. The photo showed him smiling, eyes tired but peaceful. And somewhere in a crowded cafe across town, Lily watched that same headline, her heart breaking and healing at once. She closed her notebook and began to write. Sometimes, love doesn't ask you to stay. It asks you to be brave enough to leave before it turns into a cage. Her pen didn't stop until the page was full. And miles away, Daniel finished the song. The same one that would one day play on concert stages across the world under a single dedication line. 4LM, the note that made the silence sing.